What is going on, everybody? Back at it again. Just me tonight, unfortunately. So I know most of y'all listen to James. He's not going to be on. I honestly didn't even ask if he wanted to be on. But just me tonight. Probably should have asked him, but I didn't. I figured he'd be too busy anyway because he mostly shrugs me off. Sorry, James, if you're listening. You know I love you. March Madness show today. I wanted to do something special for March Madness. I don't think we've done this in a while. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go through the bracket, give my picks, and go on my merry way, so it shouldn't take too long. Wright State and what game was it? Bryant just wrapped up. Notre Dame and I almost said Alabama. Notre Dame and Rutgers will be starting soon. I have it keyed up here on my TV here in Texas, but let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start counterclockwise, I guess. Start in the top left bracket, then go down to the bottom left, then top right, bottom right, so on and so forth. So let's start with Gonzaga, Georgia Street. That's an old joke. I shouldn't have said that. That's an old joke. Nobody would get it but my family members. Georgia State. I'll go ahead and be straight up. I'm not picking any of these, even though I think this is going to be a wild tournament. There's no clear favorite. I think it's wide open. I don't see any of these 16 seeds beating a 1. There's a reason why it's only happened once in history. Even the 15 seeds over the 2s, I know it's happened, and it's happened fairly recently, but that has only happened, I think, a handful of times, maybe 9 or 10. 14s beating 3s happens obviously a little bit more often, but I'm not picking those. They rarely happen. So 1, 2s, and 3 seeds all moving on. I'm sorry to go chalk on y'all, but I'll be boring. So Gonzaga, Georgia State, I'm going Gonzaga. Then Boise State and Memphis. I'll be honest, I went back and forth on this one. I think Memphis has more athletes, and both teams are actually playing really well. I think I read that Boise State has won 24 of its last 27 games, and Memphis has won 12 of its last 14, I think. I went back and forth. I'm going to go Boise State here. I don't know why. 24 out of 27 is really impressive. They won a pretty good Mountain West Conference twice, once in the regular season, once in the conference tournament. I think Memphis gives them all they can handle, but I'm going to go with the Broncos to move on. Uconn, New Mexico State. I think New Mexico State is a dangerous team. These 5-12 matchups are always tricky, but I think Uconn, when they have been healthy, have been a really good team this year. I think they have a really good backcourt, and they snag rebounds. I don't think New Mexico State has quite enough horsepower to keep up. So I'll go UConn. Arkansas, Vermont, another game I almost flirted with the upset. I like the Catamounts. They play really good defense. They take care of the ball. They shoot pretty well. I don't think they have the athletes, though. I like Eric Musselman a lot as a head coach. I'm going to go with Arkansas, but I think it's going to be a really tight game. Then we got Alabama, Rutgers, or Notre Dame. I'll be honest, I'm still pretty torn on this, but I'm going to stick with my pick that I have loaded on my blog right now. I'm going to go with Alabama. A lot of people are going Rutgers or Notre Dame to win this game, and they very well might happen, but I'm not sure. I was doing some research. I don't think either of those teams are good enough offensively. Alabama has been up and down all year, very inconsistent, but the one thing they are pretty good at is that they are very efficient offensively. And I like Nate Oates as a coach. I'm going to go with the Tide. I'm not super confident in it, though. Then Texas Tech and Montana State. I said, 1, 2s, and 3 seeds are moving on, so let's not worry about that one. I got the Red Raiders. Then 7-10, Michigan State against Davidson. Davidson plays very clean basketball, very fundamental. Do they have the talent to go up against Michigan State, though? I'm not sure they do. Tom Izzo isn't only one of the greatest coaches in the country, he is one of the best tournament coaches, and believe me, there is a difference. I do believe there are great coaches who aren't great in the tournament. I think that there are so-so coaches during the regular season that are great in the tournament. Maybe not so-so, but maybe just above average, solid head coaches who are great in the tournament. Izzo's great in both, so I'm going to go with the Spartans there. And then Duke, Cal State, I got Duke. So that's round 1 for the West. round of 64 in the West, round of 64 in the East goes as follows. We got Baylor over Norfolk State, North Carolina Marquette. I don't want to pick on, but I'm going to be picking on a few guys in this first round. Shaka Smart is just one of those coaches I do not trust in the tournament, and you're probably thinking, but he took VCU to the Final Four. Yes, but that was a decade ago. Ever since then, at VCU and at Texas, I think he has a record of 2-7 in the tournament. He's never made it past the first weekend outside of that Final Four run in 2013. I do not trust Shaka Smart. I will go with North Carolina here. And I'm fine with that. St. Mary's, Indiana. St. Mary's is another team I just don't buy come tournament time. I just don't buy them. They've made it past the first round only 3 times in program history. They're just not a program made for that. They're feisty. I'll give them credit for that. But Indiana's playing really well right now. If you go look at their last 10 games or so, it's not that impressive, but this has really all started since the start of the Big Ten tournament. I like the Hoosiers. They're playing well. They look pretty good, or somewhat good. Was it Tuesday night against Wyoming? I like 5-12 upsets. I'll go with the 12 seed here in Indiana to pull off the upset. UCLA and Akron. Usually 4-13 matchups are more interesting, I guess. But this is one I don't think Akron has much of a chance. I'm not trying to pick on the Zips. But every metric I look at says UCLA is the far better team. I just don't. I think Akron might be a little overseeded, honestly. And I think UCLA is probably the more underrated team in the tournament. So I like the Bruins to move on. Texas and Virginia Tech. This was tough. I'm still pretty torn on it because I've heard other people who have given a different opinion. Guys I trust in like the national media. But I'm going to stick with my guns. I'm going to take the Hokies. I hate doing it as a West Virginia fan, but I will go with the Hokies. Texas is hobbling entering the tournament. They've won, and I think they're 9-9 in their last 18. I hate picking against Chris Beard too, but I just don't like the way Texas is playing. On the other hand, Virginia Tech is hot. They've won, I think, 13 of their last 15. They just won the ACC. I'll go with the Hokies here. Not super confident in it, but I'll take the upset here. Purdue, Yale. I don't think Yale's got the bigs to match up with Purdue, so I got the Boilermakers. Murray State, San Francisco. San Francisco can make shots. Don't rule them out here, but Murray State, I think, is a dangerous team. If they were in another bracket, I'd probably pencil them to make a semi-deep run this tournament. They have 3 guys who can score 20. They're 30-2. They feel like a very underseeded team this year. I like the Racers to beat San Francisco and move on. And then Kentucky St. Peter's, I will obviously go with the Wildcats. All right, South Regional, top right corner of the bracket. Arizona over Wright State. And then Seton Hall, TCU. Again, I told you I was going to be picking on some guys. Jamie Dixon. I have a lot of respect for Jamie Dixon. I've been familiar with him ever since his Pitt days, and we played as a West Virginia fan. We played Pitt twice this season. He always seems to blow it come tournament time, and I'm not saying he's blowing it here in the first round as a 9 seed, but I remember he had some of the more talented teams I've seen at Pitt, and never really could get over the hump. He made it to past the first weekend once, maybe twice. He's just not a guy I trust come tournament time. So I will go with Seton Hall here in an I almost said old Big East matchup. I had in my brain that Jamie Dixon was still with Pitt. But I will go with Seton Hall here. Houston, UAB. I've seen a lot of UAB hype here. I know that Houston is banged up, which concerns me. But and UAB is a pretty solid team. Andy Kennedy has done a really good job down there. I don't think this is his first year at UAB. I've seen that team in person. West Virginia played there in Birmingham in December. I went to go see the game, and UAB looked pretty good. I'm not going to lie. But I'm going to go with Houston. They have a lot of talent. They have scoring depth. If not for injuries, I think Houston would be a dangerous team in the tournament. Remember, this team went to the Final Four last year. I think they returned a lot of production from that team. Veteran team with a lot of experience. Watch out for Houston to make a deep run. Illinois, Chattanooga. I really like Brad Underwood. Is it Brad Underwood? Brad Underwood as a head coach. Disappointed me last year. I think the Fighting Illini are going to be a little bit more eager to make a run this year. I will go with Illinois, but I would not be surprised if Chattanooga pulled off an upset. The 6-11 matchup, Colorado State and Michigan. At first, and I still think that this could go either way. At first, I was going to go with Colorado State just because of the number of losses that Michigan has. I think they're something like 17-14. In my opinion, that's not good enough for the tournament. However, the Wolverines have played a really tough schedule. I think they've played like the 5th toughest schedule in the country. And I think they've lost a lot of close games. They've had some injuries. I don't mind giving them a shot here. And I actually think this is a favorable matchup. I think Michigan is the more talented team, and they've been battle tested throughout the year. I'm not sure Colorado State has, but Colorado State has a player who's pretty damn good, and he could take this game over if the Wolverines aren't careful. But I will go with the Wolverines here. Tennessee Longhorn, I'm going with the Vols. Ohio State Loyola Chicago. Again, Ohio State's head coach, Chris Holtmann. I don't trust come tournament time. I've been burned before by him from his days at Butler to Ohio State. I don't think he's ever made it past the round of 32. I think he's pretty good recruiter, not much of a coach come tournament time. So I will ride with Sister Jean here, and I think this is my only 10-7 upset, I guess you could call it. And not only that, the Buckeyes have been hobbling into the playoff or the postseason. They've lost, I think, something like 4 of their last 5, 7 of their last 13, something like that. So I will go with the Ramblers here and Sister Jean. Villanova, Delaware, I'm obviously going with the Wildcats there. All right, so bottom right. Hang on, this game should be on right now. Well, let's see, there it is. Well, shoot, I just turned my TV off. Bear with me here, trying to turn the game on. All right. Event will begin soon. I thought it was starting now. I guess not. All right. Bottom right corner of the bracket. Kansas, Texas Southern. I will be going with Kansas there. Obviously, 1-16 matchup. San Diego State, Creighton. Two teams that match up pretty well. Neither of them are good offensively, but they're really good defensively. So it's going to come down to which team I trust to score buckets, and I think Creighton does a better job of that than San Diego State. So I will go with the Blue Jays. Iowa, Richmond. I think Richmond is a sneaky team. However, Iowa is one of the hottest teams I've seen entering the tournament. I wouldn't fall for the 5-12 upset here. I would take the Hawkeyes. They've been on a roll the last couple of weeks. They ended the regular season on a high note. They won the Big Ten tournament. They are red hot right now. I would ride with the Iowa, and that's what I'm going to do here. Providence, South Dakota State. This is tough. This is really, really tough because Providence, I think, is a really overseeded team. According to Ken Pomeroy, if you don't follow him, I highly recommend it. He has his own formula, algorithm, whatever you want to call it, for ranking college basketball teams. He has Providence, I think, as the 47th or 48th best team in this tournament, and that's out of 68, and they're a 4 seed. They're supposed to be a top 16 team, and Ken Pomeroy, who's pretty good at this thing, has them as a 48th best team, which would be more in line with what? 48 divided by 4 is what? 14 seed or something like that? That's not right. No, that's not right. That's 48 divided by 4. 12 seed, sorry. I was off a little bit. Math isn't my strong suit. So I think Providence is really overseeded, and South Dakota State is dangerous. And I do mean dangerous. They've won 30 games in a row, I think I heard. They can shoot the ball well. The problem is that even though I'm low on Providence, or Ken Pomeroy, who I trust a lot, is low on Providence. He's even lower on South Dakota. I think he ranks Providence at what I said 48. I think he ranks South Dakota State at 57, 62, somewhere in there. So I'm going to go with Providence. I like Ed Cooley as a head coach, but I'm not confident in that. I think the Jackrabbits are dangerous. LSU Iowa State. At first, I was so confident with this pick, and now I've heard other people say otherwise. And I'm going to stick to my guns here. If there is an upset here that I feel the most confident in, it's Iowa State over LSU. That's nothing against LSU, mostly just because they just fired their head coach a few days ago. It's been less than a week, and you're telling me that the team has to go from, wow, our season ended in disappointment, we didn't win the SEC, blah, blah, blah. Our coach is fired. Holy shit. Oh, now we have to go play in the tournament and try to go win the whole damn thing. I think that's tough. So I'm going to go with Iowa State. They're a really good defensive team. Wisconsin over Colgate, and then USC Miami. I think the Trojans have more athletes. I think his name is Andy Greenfield, the head coach. That's just me without looking. I think he's a better coach than people think. I mean, Miami was kind of subpar in a very weak ACC. I don't buy it. I'm going to go with USC here. And then Auburn over Jacksonville State. So that rounds out my first round. Quite a few upsets. Not that many, though, although I think that could change, obviously. Let's see here. All right. Back to the top left bracket. Round of 32. Gonzaga. I have Gonzaga against Boise State. I don't see the Broncos being that much of a challenge. I'm going to go with the Bulldogs, the Zags, to advance to the Sweet 16. Uconn, Arkansas. I think that's going to be one of the more entertaining games of the round of 32. I like both of these coaches. They're very underrated. I think both of these teams have good guard play. I can't really explain it. My gut says Uconn. They're just a program I trust. Come tournament time, they always have been. I'm going to go with Uconn. I wouldn't be shocked if Arkansas won, but I like Uconn's guards. I like their ability to rebound. I like Dan Hurley as a coach. I'll go with the Huskies. All right, Alabama and Texas Tech. If you're going to beat Texas Tech, you got to be able to shoot the basketball. And I just said Alabama was a really good offensive team. They've been too inconsistent. I'm not going to pick an upset here. I'm going to go with the Red Raiders to advance. Michigan State, Duke. I would not be so quick to pencil Duke to the next round. If Michigan State was playing like a Villanova or an Auburn, somewhere in there, a 2 seed like that, and even Duke, I think this is a tough matchup for Duke. I mean, you go from playing a 15 seed, probably not on your level, to playing a Hall of Fame head coach and a program who kind of disappointed this year and is a 7 seed, but a Hall of Fame head coach and a program on your level at Michigan State. Don't sleep on the Spartans. I'm going to go with Duke, but I'm not going to sleep on the Spartans. I think Tom Izzo can ugly this game up and keep it close, and then next thing you know, Michigan State's going out on top. But I will go with the Blue Devils. All right, Baylor, North Carolina. Much closer game than people expect, but I will go with the Bears. I got Indiana, UCLA. This feels like the end of the road for Indiana. Like I said, I really like UCLA. They take care of the basketball. They shoot pretty well. I expect the Bruins to move on. Virginia Tech, Purdue. Here's where I'm getting a little wacky. I'm going to go with the Hokies again. I just think they're going to keep riding this wave. Purdue worries me a lot. Once I did some research, they're a really bad defensive team. They're, I think, bottom half of this tournament. Probably worse in defensive efficiency. They can shoot. And Virginia Tech's size worries me against Purdue. But Purdue's lack of defense really, really, really concerns me. You got to play defense in the tournament. And I don't think the Boilermakers do that very well or consistently enough to convince me to pick them. So I'm going to go with the upset here. I'm going to go with Virginia Tech. I think this is a somewhat favorable matchup for them. All right, Murray State, Kentucky, much like with North Carolina and Baylor, much closer game than people think. I think Murray State gives Kentucky a run for their money, but I think Kentucky's combination of talent, coaching, depth, whatever you want to call it, will take over, and I think the Wildcats eke one out. All right, I got Arizona and Seton Hall. I will go with Arizona to move on. I'm not sure Seton Hall matches up. If you're going to beat Arizona, you got to be big, or you got to shoot over them, and I don't think Seton Hall can do that. All right, Houston and Illinois. I'm going to, against my better judgment, because I don't like picking teams that aren't healthy, but I'm going to go with Houston. Again, I think Houston's very underseeded. Kelvin Sampson has that program rolling. And even though they're banged up, they're still winning games. I like the Cougars here, but I'm not that confident in it. Michigan and Tennessee. This feels like the end of the road for Michigan. I just don't think they'll get past Tennessee. Tennessee's playing really well. They're red hot. They've won something like 13 of their last 15, including winning the SEC tournament. So I'll go with the Vols. Loyola, Chicago, Villanova. I will go with the Wildcats here. Loyola, Chicago. I'm not convinced they're going to get to this point. I don't know anything about this new head coach that they have after Porter Moser left for Oklahoma last year. So I'm going to go with Villanova. All right, Midwest Regional. I got Kansas and Creighton. I will go with the Jayhawks. I don't think Creighton can make enough baskets. And then Iowa and Providence. I will go with Iowa. I don't think, like I said, I don't buy Providence. They've had a really good year. But another problem with Providence is I think they've won a lot of close games, which could be helpful come tournament time. The problem is I'm not sure this game's going to be close. Iowa is that hot right now. I'll go with the Hawkeyes. Iowa State, Wisconsin. I'm going to go with the Badgers. Tough defensively. Iowa State doesn't shoot the ball that well. USC Auburn. I was close to the upset. I think Auburn's talent will catapult them to the next round. So I will go with the Tigers. So Sweet 16 time. West Regional. I got Gonzaga and Uconn. I think Uconn matches up better than people think against Gonzaga. They're big. I think their backcourt is better than Gonzaga's. This Gonzaga team, I don't think is as good as it was last year. I'm going to take Gonzaga, but I wouldn't be shocked if UConn won. Texas Tech, Duke. Like I said, if you're going to beat Texas Tech, they rank in the top 50 in the country out of 300-some teams in a lot of defensive categories, and that came in a very tough Big 12 conference this year. If you're going to beat Texas Tech, you have to be able to shoot or be efficient offensively, and I don't think Duke does that very well. They don't have much of an identity. They're young. Texas Tech is experienced. I'm going to go with the Red Raiders. I think that's the way Coach K's career is going to go out. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. But I think that's going to be Coach K's last game if they meet Texas Tech in the Sweet 16. So East Regional, I have Baylor and UCLA. This is kind of my first big upset. I will be taking UCLA over Baylor. I think Baylor is probably the most vulnerable of these one seeds. They don't strike me as being as good as they were last year. They disappear offensively. They've had some injuries. And I'm going to keep riding with UCLA. I think UCLA is really talented. Their lack of a post presence worries me a lot, though, but I think they can shoot the ball, and I think they'll be able to make shots, whereas I'm not sure Baylor can. Another thing about UCLA, I'm not sure if I mentioned this, they take care of the basketball. I think that's huge come tournament time. UCLA takes care of the basketball, they don't hurt themselves, and they make free throws. I think that's huge. Whereas Baylor is kind of mediocre at free throw shooting, they don't take care of the basketball as well as UCLA. So that's why I have the Bruins. All right, I have Virginia Tech, Kentucky. Virginia Tech does not match up with Kentucky at all. I'm still not convinced Virginia Tech's going to make it to this point. But even if it's Purdue, I don't think Purdue matches up with Kentucky either. But I have Tech, so Tech just doesn't have the bigs. I think their luck's going to run out shooting. Kentucky has depth. They're big. They have the coaching. I think Kentucky wins, and I'm not sure it'll be that close. All right, South Regional, Arizona, and who did I have? Houston. If Houston was in another bracket, I'd strongly consider picking them to go on a deep run. Arizona's a tough draw. It really is. I really like this Arizona squad. Wildcats have more talent. I think they're going to be healthier by the time this matchup rolls around. I know that's kind of in question right now. I think it sounds like they'll be good to go, though. So I will be going with Arizona to advance. And then it is Tennessee, Villanova. I think Villanova's lack of a post presence will come back to bite them. I also don't like picking teams who are too reliant on three-point shooting, and I think Villanova is top 5, ranks among the top 5 teams in this tournament who shoot the most threes. I don't like that. I think you got to develop another game. You got to have a post presence, something. Rick Barnes usually is not a coach I trust come tournament time, but I think this is a favorable matchup. Tennessee has a really good three-point defense. Most teams don't shoot the ball that well against them, so I think that'll come back to bite Villanova in the butt. Midwest Regional, I have Kansas and Iowa. I will be honest, I've been going through this in my mind for a while. I'm spending way too much time trying to pick which team to go with. I originally was going to go with Kansas, but the closer we get to this thing tipping off, the more I like Iowa. This Kansas team isn't Bill Self's best. They're not that talented. They don't shoot the ball that well. And if what's his name? I can never remember his name. Agbajan something. Let me pull it up here so I can get it right. Do they play tomorrow? Yeah, what time? Should have known this before. Agbaji. Okay, Agbaji. If Agbaji doesn't get going, I think Kansas is in trouble because they don't have very many guys outside of him who can shoot the ball. So I will be going with the Hawkeyes to get the upset and move on to the Elite Eight. Wisconsin and Auburn. I originally had Wisconsin, but I think the Badgers are way too reliant on point guard, or I'm sorry, I don't know if he's a point guard, but on Johnny Davis. And I don't think that they have very many guys after him who can score effectively if he can't get going, and that's been an issue with them all year. Auburn worries me a lot. I don't like their backcourt, but they have the bigs. I think Auburn is a good defensive team. Wisconsin doesn't make shots all that well. I will go with Auburn to squeak one out. So Elite Eight, back to the West Regional. Gonzaga, Texas Tech. I keep changing my picks. I originally had Texas Tech, but at some point Texas Tech's going to have to make shots. I think they've had some favorable matchups up to this point against Montana State, Alabama, and Duke. Teams who are either not as talented or inconsistent or young and experienced. But this feels like the end of the road for Texas Tech. Gonzaga is experienced. They're talented. They shoot the ball pretty well. I will go with Gonzaga just because I don't trust Texas Tech's ability to make shots. So I have UCLA and Kentucky in the East final. I will be taking Kentucky. I really like their depth. And I think Sheboy will have a really big game against UCLA because UCLA doesn't really have a postman. I like Kentucky to move on. South Regional, Arizona and Tennessee. I'm close to picking Tennessee. I'm not going to do it, though. Arizona is a really, really good team. They have a lot of scoring depth. They're big. And I don't think Tennessee can match up. Or I don't know about match up. I don't think Tennessee can keep up on the scoreboard. I'm going to go with Arizona to advance. All right. Midwest Regional. Iowa and Auburn. I think this is the end of the road for Auburn. I don't believe in Bruce Pearl as a head coach. Sorry to my Auburn fans if you're listening, but I've been pretty adamant that I don't think Bruce Pearl's that good. Great recruiter, not so great in the tournament. And I think Auburn's inexperienced backcourt is going to come back to hurt them. If you're going to win the tournament, you either have to be incredibly talented at the guard position or you have to be experienced. Now, Auburn is talented. I don't think they're incredibly talented at the guard position. So I will be going with the Hawkeyes to go to the Final Four. And that gives me a Final Four of Gonzaga, Kentucky, Arizona, and Iowa. I will take Kentucky over Gonzaga. I think Kentucky matches up well with Gonzaga. The issue with Gonzaga is, especially for Drew Timme, the man in the post, he struggles against physical competition, and I think Kentucky is physical, specifically Oscar Tshiebwe, who used to be at West Virginia. He's a rebound machine. I think Gonzaga is going to struggle in the paint against Kentucky, and Kentucky also can make shots. If they do manage to contain Tshiebwe, Kentucky has the ability to score. And I like their guards more than I do Gonzaga's guards. I'm going to go with Calipari to upset the Bulldogs and get in the national title. On the other side, you can only run on momentum so long. Sorry to the Hawkeye fans out there. I will take Arizona over Iowa in the Final Four, which gives me a national championship of Wildcats. Kentucky and Arizona. I think this will be a really interesting game if these teams make it. I think they're incredibly talented. They are similar. They're both big. They crash the boards really well. They have scoring depth. I'm going to take Kentucky, though. This might be John Calipari's best team, and I don't necessarily mean his most talented team. I mean his most well-rounded team. For the first time in a while, I said this wasn't their most talented team at Lexington, but it's not that far of a drop-off. This team is really talented. But the other thing about this team is that for the first time really in Calipari's tenure at Kentucky, they're an experienced team. They have a lot of guys who have been in the program for a few years, and I think that's going to be very valuable. Arizona, first-year head coach, not as much experience, I don't think. And another thing, Kentucky matches up with Arizona in the post. They also have the scoring depth to go toe-to-toe with Arizona. I think both of these teams had a combined 13 players lead their team in scoring at one point this season, and then 11 of them, I think, have scored 20 points. These teams can score, and I think that's going to be valuable come tournament time. With one game, for all the marbles, give me John Calipari over Tommy Lloyd, who has done a great job at Arizona. I just don't know much about him right now. But yeah, I have Kentucky cutting down the nets. So those are my 2022 NCAA tournament predictions as Rutgers and Notre Dame finally tips off here on Wednesday night. Looking forward to it. I love March Madness. Should have gotten James, tried to convince James to come on the podcast. We are looking to do a show at some point. Obviously, NFL offseason is cranking up. A lot of moves have been made. Tom Brady is back. A lot of quarterbacks have been dealt, and we're not done there. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is also back with the Packers, so we will have a show at some point. James has said let's hold off a little bit and wait until more news comes out, so that's fine. I had a busy week last week. That's why he said let's push it off. So we probably will for one more week. We'll see what all happens. Deshaun Watson's name's starting to heat up. But we will get together at some point, probably next week. But that's the podcast. So see y'all around.